If you're using ChatGPT to manage projects, you're doing it wrong. And I don't say that to be provocative, I say it because the interface is fundamentally broken for long-term work. You see, chatbots are designed for conversations, but projects aren't conversations. Projects are living systems that evolve over months, sometimes years. They have stakeholders, constraints, budgets, and timelines that shift constantly. A chatbot forgets all of that the moment you close the window. Today, we're going to kill the chatbot mentality, and we're going to build something better. A recursive, state-aware project operating system using Claude. By the end of this video, you'll have a completely different relationship with artificial intelligence. Let's get into it. I want you to look at this chart and be honest with yourself. How much of your week looks like this? 50% of the average project manager's time goes to what I call data hygiene, cleaning up meeting notes, reformatting spreadsheets, chasing people for status updates, copying and pasting information between tools. This is the admin tax. And here's the thing, it's not your fault. It's not a time management problem. It's a tooling problem. Your tools are forcing you to be a data router instead of a strategic leader. You're spending your best hours on work that doesn't require your expertise. Today, we fire you from that job. We're going to automate the science of project management so you can focus on the art. So why do standard artificial intelligence tools fail project managers? It comes down to one word, memory, or more accurately, the lack of it. Standard chatbots are stateless. Every time you start a new conversation, the artificial intelligence has complete amnesia. It doesn't remember your budget constraints. It doesn't remember your stakeholders. It doesn't remember that conversation you had last Tuesday about the vendor delay. Claude Projects is different. It's stateful. Think of it as a vault that persists across every conversation. You tell it once that your chief financial officer hates surprises, and it remembers. You upload your project charter, and it's always there. This is the foundation of everything we're about to build. Here's the framework we're going to use. I call it the recursive project operating system. It's a cycle with 4 stages. First, input. You feed documents, notes, and context into the system. Second, the project brain. This is Claude's persistent memory where everything lives. Third, artifacts. These are the visual outputs. Gantt charts, dashboards, risk matrices, things your stakeholders can actually look at and understand. And fourth, feedback. You refine, you correct, you add more context. And here's the magic. Every time you complete this cycle, the brain gets smarter. It learns your project's specific language. It understands your constraints. It anticipates your needs. This isn't linear prompting. This is recursive building. Let me show you where the magic happens. On the left side of Claude's interface, you'll see this panel called Project Knowledge. This is your long-term memory. Think of it as your project's hippocampus. Now, this is critically different from chat attachments. When you attach a file to a regular chat, it only exists for that conversation. The moment you start a new chat, that file is gone from context. But when you add content to project knowledge, it persists. Every new conversation you start within that project can see these files. So if you upload your project charter on day 1, and then 6 weeks later you ask Claude about scope, it can reference that charter directly. You can upload text files, PDFs, even images. There are storage limits based on your plan tier, but for most projects, you'll have plenty of room. This is the foundation of state management, and the Add Content button right here is how you build your brain over time. Every document you add makes your artificial intelligence assistant more capable. Now, before you start uploading everything to your project brain, we need to talk about data hygiene. Garbage in, garbage out. This is the Janitor Protocol. Here's the rule. Never upload raw, unstructured data directly to your project knowledge. Meeting transcripts are messy. They're full of filler words, tangents, off-topic jokes, and half-finished thoughts. If you dump that into your brain, you're polluting it. The artificial intelligence will struggle to find the signal in all that noise. Instead, create what I call a janitor chat. This is a separate, temporary conversation outside your main project. Paste your raw transcript there. Ask Claude to clean it up, extract the key decisions, identify action items, and format it properly. You'll get back a clean, structured summary. Then, and only then, do you upload the cleaned version to your project knowledge. It takes an extra 2 minutes, but it keeps your brain clean for months. Trust me, your future self will thank you. The most important file in your project brain is this one, the context README. Think of it as the user manual for your artificial intelligence. Without this file, Claude is guessing. With it, Claude knows exactly how to behave. Let me walk you through the sections. First, prime directives. These are your non-negotiables. Things like always prioritize risk mitigation over speed, or never commit to dates without my approval. Second, stakeholders. List your key players and their personalities. Your chief financial officer who controls the budget. Legal, who I like to call the villain because they slow everything down. The engineering lead who pushes back on timelines. Third, acronyms. Every project has its own language. SOW means statement of work. UAT means user acceptance testing. RACI means responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. Define these so Claude doesn't get confused. And finally, date formats. Tell Claude to use ISO 8601, year, month, day. This prevents ambiguity and keeps everything consistent across your documentation. Now let's configure Claude's personality using custom instructions. This is where you define how Claude should behave in every conversation within this project. Here's my go-to prompt. You are a risk-averse senior project manager with 15 years of experience. Challenge my assumptions. Flag any ambiguity you see. Never accept as soon as possible as a deadline. Push back when timelines are unrealistic. Ask clarifying questions before making recommendations. Notice what I'm doing here. I don't want a helpful assistant that agrees with everything I say. I want a ruthless chief of staff who will tell me when I'm being sloppy. This prompt sets the temperature to professional and critical. It's your project management office in a box, a virtual advisor that keeps you honest. Let's talk about the text-to-visual gap. This is one of the biggest time sinks in project management. On the left, you have your data. 50 rows in Excel showing tasks, owners, dates, dependencies. It's all there, but it's unreadable. Your eyes glaze over. Stakeholders don't read Excel. They scan pictures. On the right is what they actually need, a clean Gantt chart that shows the critical path at a glance, color-coded, easy to understand. Now, crossing this gap traditionally takes hours. You're manually drawing boxes in PowerPoint, aligning arrows, updating colors, fixing text that won't fit. With Claude artifacts, this gap disappears. It takes seconds. Let me show you exactly how it works. Watch what happens when I type this prompt. Generate a mermaid Gantt chart for phase 1 of the project. I hit enter, and look at the right side of the screen. Claude writes the mermaid.js code automatically, and the artifact window renders it into a visual chart instantly. I didn't draw any boxes, I didn't align any arrows, I didn't fiddle with formatting for an hour. I just described what I needed, and the chart appeared. But here's what makes this powerful. This isn't a static image, it's code. If I need to change a date, I don't redraw the whole thing. I just tell Claude, delay the alpha milestone by 3 days, and the chart updates automatically. If I need to add a new task, I describe it, and Claude inserts it in the right place with the correct dependencies. This is the difference between drawing and describing. You describe the logic. Claude handles the rendering. You can iterate in seconds instead of hours, and if you make a mistake, you just ask Claude to fix it. Let me show you something even more powerful. I'm going to ask Claude to create a risk heat map using React with filtering capabilities. Watch the artifact panel. Claude is building a custom web application right now. It's writing real code. And there it is. An interactive risk dashboard. I can click to filter by category. I can sort by severity. I can hover for details. I can collapse sections I don't need. This is a fully functional app. And it took about 60 seconds. Maybe a bit longer if I need to iterate on the design. Now here's the mindset shift. This is disposable software. You don't need to maintain this. You don't need to deploy it to a server. You don't need to worry about security patches. You build it for one meeting to visualize risk for your stakeholders. After the meeting, you delete it. If you need something different next week, you build something different. This is just-in-time tooling. Build exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Of course, the goal isn't to keep your data locked inside Claude. You need to get it into your presentations and reports. Here's the workflow. First, generate your visual artifact in Claude. Refine it until it looks exactly right. Then, look for the download button. You can export as a scalable vector graphic, which is perfect for presentations because it scales to any size without losing quality. Click it. Now you have a file that you can insert directly into PowerPoint or Google Slides. It scales perfectly, it looks professional, and your steering committee has no idea you made it in 60 seconds. They just think you have a design team. One-click export makes you look like a genius. Use it liberally. Let me give you a sense of what's possible with artifacts. These are just some of the things you can build. Logic maps for visualizing decision trees and dependencies. Kanban boards for tracking task status across your team. Interactive budget tables for spend tracking with formulas built in. Flowcharts for process documentation. Org charts for stakeholder mapping. Timeline visualizations for roadmap presentations. The principle is simple. If you can describe the logic, Claude can build the tool. You're not limited to what some product manager decided to include in their software. You can build exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Custom tooling on demand. Now let's talk about simulation, because the hardest part of project management isn't the charts or the schedules, it's the people. Every project has difficult stakeholders. The chief financial officer who's budget conscious and skeptical of every expense. Legal, who's risk averse and will find problems you didn't know existed. The development lead who's timeline focused and will push back on scope. The client who's outcome driven and impatient for results. Here's the strategy. Before you walk into that meeting, simulate it. Use your project brain to role play with these stakeholders. Let Claude play the villain. Challenge your arguments in the safety of your screen, so you're bulletproof when you're in the room. Practice makes perfect. Practice with artificial intelligence makes perfect faster. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. I tell Claude, act as my executive sponsor. You're grumpy, you hate delays, you question every expense, you have zero patience for excuses. Then I practice my pitch. I say, we need to extend the deadline by 2 weeks. And Claude, as the sponsor, fires back. Absolutely not. Why didn't you plan for this? What's the impact to the budget? I respond. The vendor delivered late. Claude cuts me off. That's not my problem. What's your mitigation plan? What are the alternatives? This is practice bleeding. I'd rather get destroyed by Claude in this window than get destroyed by my actual sponsor in the boardroom. By the time I walk into that meeting, I've already answered every hard question. I've already refined my pitch. I walk in confident. Here's one of my favorite techniques, the pre-mortem. It's a time travel prompt. You tell Claude it is 6 months from now and this project has failed spectacularly. Using the risk register and everything you know about this project, tell me the exact chain of events that led to failure. And then you wait. Claude will construct a narrative of doom based on everything in your project brain. It'll identify the vendor that was always a risk, the stakeholder who was never fully aligned, the technical dependency that everyone ignored, the budget line that was too optimistic. This isn't pessimism. This is proactive risk management. You're predicting failure before it happens so you can prevent it. And the best part is, you now have documentation showing you identified these risks early. That's career protection. Let's apply this simulation mindset to documents, specifically contracts. Before you send your statement of work to the client, run it through the Red Team audit. Upload the document to your project brain. Then prompt Claude, act as the client's lawyer. Your job is to find every loophole, every ambiguity, and every clause that could be used against us. Find the problems before I send this. Be adversarial. Claude will tear your document apart. It'll find the vague language around deliverables, the missing termination clause, the scope statement that could be interpreted 3 different ways, the payment terms that don't specify currency. You fix these issues now. You close the loopholes before the contract is signed. This is how you avoid disputes 6 months down the road. Let's talk about communication workflows. Here's a common scenario. You have your weekly status log. It contains everything that happened this week, risks, progress, blockers, decisions. Now you need to send updates to 3 different audiences. Executives want a 1-page summary with key performance indicators and risks. The client wants a progress update focused on milestones and deliverables. Your team wants tactical action items with clear owners and deadlines. Most project managers write 3 separate reports. That's insane. That's an hour of redundant work. With the multi-audience engine, you write once and transform 3 times. You ask Claude to synthesize your weekly log into 3 distinct voices based on the personas in your context README. Same data, 3 perspectives, 5 minutes of work instead of an hour. Here's a workflow that will save you from so many follow-up emails. The Action Item Hunter. After every meeting, you upload the transcript or your notes. Then you ask Claude to extract all action items and score them for ambiguity. Look at this table. Finalize budget. Owned by Sarah, due March 15th, ambiguity score low. That's a good action item. Clear owner, clear deadline, clear deliverable. Now look at the next one. Look into the API issue. Owned by Mike, due to be determined. Ambiguity score high. That's a problem. No deadline means it won't happen. And this one is even worse. Circle back on vendor. Owned by team, due soon. Claude flags these because they're not real commitments. They're vague promises that will slip through the cracks. Now you know exactly which items need clarification before you leave the meeting. Alright, let me share a selfish benefit. Performance review time comes around and you're trying to remember what you accomplished this quarter. You know you did good work. You know you averted at least 3 crises. But the details are fuzzy. You can't remember the specifics. Here's the prompt. Summarize my personal contributions and crises averted this quarter, formatted for a performance review. Claude has been watching everything. It's in your project brain. Every decision you made, every risk you flagged, every stakeholder conflict you resolved, every deadline you saved. It compiles it all into a neat summary, quantified achievements, documented risk mitigations, stakeholder feedback. This is career insurance. Never forget your wins. Let the artificial intelligence remember them for you. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a mindset shift. On the left, we have the author, stressed, typing frantically, trying to produce every document, every chart, every report from scratch. Their value is measured in typing speed. They're exhausted by Friday. On the right, we have the editor, calm, reviewing, deciding. They describe what needs to exist and the system produces it. They refine and approve. Their value is measured in decision quality. They leave work with energy to spare. This is the transition we're making. You're no longer the person who writes the status report. You're the person who reviews and approves the status report. Your job is strategic oversight, not document production. Stop being the author. Start being the editor. I know that was a lot, so I've packaged everything we discussed into a free starter kit. The context README template so you don't have to start from scratch. The janitor prompt for cleaning your transcripts. A mermaid cheat sheet with the syntax for building artifacts. A risk register template formatted for Claude to ingest. And a hallucination test guide so you can verify the artificial intelligence isn't making things up. Download the kit from the link in the description. It'll get you from 0 to operational in about an hour. The era of the chatbot is over. The era of the project operating system has begun. Stop chatting, start building. I'll see you in the next one.